What if I told you that the secret to living the life of your dreams has been inside of you all along? I know it's crazy. You're like, what are you talking about? But it's true. It's called your intuition. And in this video, I'm going to give you 5 practical steps to supercharging it so that you can live that life of your dreams. Hi, I'm Kirby. I'm a recovering people pleaser. I like to say that I learned boundaries the hard way, so hopefully you don't have to. And it may come as a shock to some people, but boundaries are actually very spiritual. So there is a lot of overlap in boundaries and spirituality. So this is one of those videos. Okay, so intuition. Why the heck is that so important to living the life of my dreams? I'm going to tell you. So back in 2004, I remember when the tsunami hit. Okay, I might be dating myself. That's fine. But I remember hearing all these stories about the fact that almost no animals were harmed in the tsunami. And it's like, what? Because they all went to higher ground, or the fish all swam in the other direction. But it was the humans that there was the most impact with. And I remember thinking, like, that's so interesting. Like, how do the animals know? Well, the animals have intuition just like we do. We are also animals, but we are animals that can create and think about the past and the future, and they don't have that. So they have a direct link to source and, you know, whatever you want to call it. And so that's why they just know what to do instinctually when something like that happens. Then you take us, for example, and, you know, I might be at the grocery store with my body, but in my head, I'm like, okay, well, I've got that bill coming up, and I've got that conference, and I'm just like, oh, I'm kind of dreading it. And then, that conversation didn't go the way I wanted it to. I should have said that differently. Our brains are completely clouded with all of these thoughts, all of these worries, all of these stresses about the past and the future. And to be in touch with your intuition, you actually need to be in the present moment, which for a lot of people, myself included, didn't always feel great. So when I was a little kid, the present moment was not fun. It wasn't great. It didn't really feel safe. And so because I didn't have a lot of adults around me, you know, demonstrating healthy coping mechanisms, I, in the way a little kid would, reach for the easiest, quickest fix. And that looked like eating, or, you know, as I got older, drinking alcohol or shopping, you know, any of these things just to kind of numb. And what that did was, it like kept me from feeling the scariness of the present moment, but it also numbed everything else, and it cut me off from my intuition. So really, I was like on a fast track in the wrong direction. But recently, you know, in the past like decade or so, I've learned some really healthy coping mechanisms, and I've thought about this a lot. So okay, intuition is our GPS. It's going to help us get, just like those animals that need to go to higher ground during the tsunami, it's going to help us find our purpose and the life that we've always wanted to live. But how do we get in touch with it? It seems so like esoteric, like, oh, just follow your intuition. Like it's super easy to explain and everyone will get it when I just say that. It's not true. But there are really practical ways to get in touch with it. So the first one is meditation. And don't roll your eyes. I know. I love it. A lot of people have feelings about meditation. But it works. And that's why people recommend it a lot. So what happens in meditation, and by meditation I mean sitting quietly and still for a matter of time and focusing on the present moment, whether that's focusing on your breath or the sounds happening around you, just focusing on the present moment and trying to get out of the rat race of your mind, which for me sometimes, even just being still, even if my brain is still racing, if I'm just still and for a certain amount of time, I still get benefits from meditation. So I will say, like, don't feel like you have to clear your brain, because when you tell yourself you need to clear your brain, like this just brings more thoughts and all that kind of stuff. And then you just get into this stressful, self-defeating situation. So, whatever happens for me in a meditation session, if it's awesome and I'm super zen and I haven't had a thought in like 3 minutes, amazing. But as soon as I'm like, oh wow, I haven't had a thought in 3 minutes, then I have like 5,000 thoughts. So go easy on yourself. But what meditation does is that it quiets down the part of the brain that is in charge of rumination, that past and future stress. And what it also does is it heightens your awareness of your physical body and your emotions. And so this also puts you in a relaxed state. Not just, you're not just aware of all of this, but you're also more relaxed, which means your mind is going to be less stressed and more receptive to any messages or thoughts you have coming through. So I'm going to share a personal story. I recently lost my stepmom, and it was pretty sudden and unexpected. It was really hard. And, I'm pretty lucky because this was the first really close person to me that's passed away in my life, which is kind of crazy. I've had like 2 grandmothers passed away, but they were in their 90s and they had dementia for a while. So like it was kind of, not as sudden and unexpected, but this one really hit. And I found myself, because of that, being super present, because it just felt like life was so fragile. I didn't know what was going to happen the next day. I had just hung out with her and everything was fine, and the next day she was gone. And it made me think about when the pandemic hit. I remember being like, oh, I have all these plans. I'm going to go here. I'm going to do this. And then the next day, my son's school closed down. And then the day after that, my work closed down. And my life looked dramatically different than it did, previously. And so what I found is that it made me present. And so obviously I don't recommend having someone close to you die suddenly. But in the same way that meditation clears your mind, I also felt like this was clearing my mind and making me more present. There's a point to this story. I'll get to it. So I was walking around. I had run a few errands in like our little downtown area, and I was just killing some time walking around this cute little store before I had to go pick my boys up from the bus stop. And as I'm in the store, I'm just kind of walking around, and I have a business where I sell vintage and antiques online. And it's a fairly new business that I've been doing for a long time, but just went full time, like 6 months ago. So I'm still looking for like new ways to increase my revenue, and I have just kind of been hitting my head against the wall. But in this moment, I'm walking around this store and I'm just feeling really present. And I'm looking at some of the stuff, and I was like, oh, this is like a vintage candlestick holder. That's interesting. I didn't know she had vintage in here. And then my brain goes, oh, I wonder if she would want help with vintage sourcing. I wonder if that's even something that shop owners would be into. That's interesting. So then I'm walking around, I'm thinking about it, and I was like, oh, okay, that's a good idea. I'll have to look into that. And then I see this woman come out from the back of the store, and there was other people in the store that were working there, but I didn't go up to them. But I do go up to this woman, and we just start talking. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna spitball. I was like, I've never done this, but I'm just curious. Do you ever, have a need for vintage items? And she said, you know what? I used to buy a lot of vintage, but I, just found it took so much time and it was so hard to do that I just kind of stopped. But I really would love to have some vintage pieces in the store. And I was like, oh, well, great. Like, I have a vintage store and I would love to help you with that. And so we exchanged numbers, and now that's like a partnership that I'm, going to be moving into. And it just was crazy to me. I was like, because I was so present, these new ideas, these ways that I couldn't see before with my logical brain that is scared and trying to figure things out, all of a sudden I'm just receptive to source, to my intuition. And I just kind of follow that thread, and I just end up talking to the owner of the shop. And she just happens to be in a great mood and super receptive. It's crazy how that works. So meditation, that was a long tangent, but believe me, I'm going to keep going. Prayer and mantras. So some people might have an intense reaction to the word prayer, but hear me out. I remember learning about, I'm not Catholic, I remember learning about how to pray the rosary. And if someone has prayed the rosary for you, they really care about you because it takes a very, very long time. And so what they're doing is essentially repeating memorized prayers. I think it's the Our Father and the Hail Mary and maybe one other one. I could be wrong. Let me know, you Catholics, in the comments. And they're doing over and over for each bead on the rosary. So it takes a really long time to do. But then I thought about it. I was like, oh, that's interesting. As they're doing that, guess what can't be happening if they're reciting memorized prayers in their brain? Oh, they can't be thinking of things that are stressing them out. So that really pulls them into the present moment. And in the same way, when people use a mantra, which kind of goes along with meditation, you can use it in meditation, or you can just be saying it in your brain as you walk about through your day. It stops the incessant thinking, the monkey mind, from just rattling off all the time, and it interrupts the thoughts. So you get a break and you become more present. Another thing that really helps is exercise, physical exercise. This morning when I was doing a wall sit for the third time for the third minute, I wasn't thinking about how I need to start looking for apartments and moving. I was thinking about how actually on fire my thighs were. So in the same way that meditation kind of, heightens your awareness of your body, same obviously with physical exercise. So that's a really good one too. Another thing you can do is get out into nature. So there are so many benefits of getting out into nature, and that can just, it can just be a walk outside, right? But it fosters a sense of connection, which also lowers our cortisol, the stress hormone, which puts us more in a relaxed state. Also, there's so many things that we're seeing that we normally don't see. We're not on our phones. Also, this morning I went for a walk and I walked through a spider web. So, in that moment when I was trying to figure out if there was a spider on me, I was very present and I was not thinking about all the things that are stressing me out. I was thinking about, where is the spider? Is there a spider? How do I get these cobwebs off of my face? I don't know if you ever had that happen to you. It's a delight. And then the last thing is service. So if you're familiar with 12-step programs, a lot of times they tell people to call somebody when they're new in the program. You have to call 3 people a day, and not to talk about yourself, but just to talk to them about what's going on in their life. And the reason for that is because when we shift our focus to others, then obviously we're not thinking about all of our own crap, okay? And the other part of that too is that we see that, oh, maybe our problems aren't so bad. And then that lowers our stress as well. And also it fosters connectivity and connection. I just said that, same thing. Anyways, it fosters connection and it makes you feel a sense of belonging and purpose. So doing any of those things will work to clear your mind and help you supercharge your intuition, which will then open up opportunities for you, like the one I had in the shop, right? Things that you couldn't see from your own limited perspective, all of a sudden, the path opens up to you and it becomes seamless and easy because you're in the flow. So if you like this content, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. If you like this content, please subscribe for more. I have a few other videos on. I have mostly shorts, but a couple other videos as well. I'm so grateful that you're watching this and joining me. And I hope you have a great day. Thanks.